Welcome back to Drama with Ted and Tina, where favoritism isn't subtle, it's fully financed. Today's story comes from a guy who grew up as his family's second choice, watching his brother get the house, the car, and the parade of praise while he got hand-me-downs and a $2 lottery ticket for graduating college. But instead of exploding, he vanished. Instead of begging for respect, he cashed in his silence. Because that ticket? It hit. And this story? It ends with generational revenge, a luxury home 2 blocks from betrayal, and a family realizing, too late, who they were really dealing with. I was 7 the first time I realized I was the family's leftover. Jason got the brand new PlayStation complete with dual controllers and a stack of games. He unwrapped it like he was accepting an Oscar, basking in my parents' applause. Meanwhile, I peeled back paper to reveal a discount bin t-shirt that could double as a tent, proudly displaying the logo of Rick's Plumbing Solutions. My mom grinned and said, "Isn't that fun?" I nodded, already knowing the rule. Jason got everything, and I got whatever they found in a bargain bin. I didn't cry. I didn't complain. I thanked them like a good little peasant while Jason locked himself in his room with digital joy and surround sound. I sat on the couch, pretending reruns of Full House were just as good as Crash Bandicoot. That night, I learned something deep and unshakable. Nobody was coming to rescue me, not even Santa. It didn't get better with age, just more expensive. When Jason turned 16, he walked outside to a silver Honda Civic wrapped in a bow the size of my self-worth. I turned 16 and got a used mountain bike with a flat tire and a high five from Dad for the cardio opportunity. Jason got a fully paid college education, complete with dorm supplies and a new laptop. I got a pile of FAFSA paperwork and a long-winded speech about responsibility. I filled out every form myself, took out loans, and convinced myself that hardship built character. Meanwhile, Jason majored in undecided and partied like it was his career path. Every family picture, Jason front and center, me holding the camera. Our fridge was a shrine to Jason's honor roll glory, while my B+ in algebra got me a keep trying head pat. If you think this is sibling rivalry, let me assure you, it's just straight-up class warfare in a single household. By the time Jason graduated college, my parents had planned an event so big you'd think he cured cancer. They rented a ballroom, hired a DJ, had a diploma-shaped cake, and invited every breathing relative from 6 states. The evening climaxed with them handing Jason a set of keys to a freshly built house in the suburbs. "We're so proud of you," they said in unison, glowing with joy. A year later, I graduated too. No cake, no DJ, just a lukewarm dinner at Applebee's where they handed me a single white envelope like it contained the deed to a car, but inside was a $2.00 lottery ticket. "We thought it'd be fun," my mom chirped. "You never know, maybe you'll hit the jackpot." She laughed, sipping her margarita like she hadn't just handed me proof I was a backup child. I stared at the ticket, waiting for the real gift. Nothing. I looked at Dad. He shrugged. "We spent a lot on Jason's house." "Of course you did," I laughed. Not out of humor, but because if I didn't laugh, I'd scream in public. "Guess this is my only shot at getting something nice," I said, and everyone just nodded. I tossed the ticket in my junk drawer and didn't touch it for months. It sat there, next to some expired coupons and half-dead batteries, silently mocking me. I tried to shrug it off. I told myself I didn't care. I was an adult now. I didn't need my parents' validation or their gifts. But the more I tried to let it go, the more it ate at me. Every text from Jason about his new grill, every phone call from Mom bragging about his career exploration, every group chat photo of Jason's brunches with the caption, "Blessed," drove the knife a little deeper. My friends were livid. "They gave him a house and you a scratch-off?" Chris said, like I'd just told him my parents left me a box of lint for my birthday. That's when it hit me. This wasn't just favoritism. This was a whole curated lifestyle around one son, and I was just the cautionary tale in the background. I didn't want revenge. I just wanted to vanish from their radar and build something that was mine. Quietly. So I did what every underestimated middle child does. I disappeared in plain sight. I found a job at a small marketing firm and leased a 1-bedroom shoebox downtown that came with free noise pollution courtesy of midnight karaoke sessions next door. I didn't tell my parents I moved. Why bother? They never asked. Jason kept inviting me over to his palace, that suburban fantasy Mom and Dad had bought him. Every visit was like attending a Jason expo. Photos of his graduation, his car, his house, his face plastered everywhere like a one-man cult. Mom would beam and say things like, "Isn't this backsplash gorgeous?" We helped him pick it out. Dad nodded in approval like Jason had laid the tiles himself. Meanwhile, I stood in the corner clutching a can of off-brand soda, smiling like an unpaid extra. My stories were met with polite nods and swift subject changes. I could have told them I was abducted by aliens, and they'd say, "Oh, anyway, Jason's thinking of getting a pool." One night, after a family dinner that felt more like a Jason teen fundraiser, I went home and opened the drawer. There it was, the damn ticket. I turned it over in my hands. The odds were printed on the back. 1 in 300 million. I nearly chucked it into the trash, but some stubborn part of me couldn't do it. I slipped it back in the drawer and shut it with a snap. That night, lying in bed under a flickering ceiling fan, I realized something with perfect clarity. I had spent my entire life trying to win a game that was rigged from the start. My parents were never going to see me the way they saw Jason, no matter how hard I tried. Maybe it was time to stop trying. Time to stop performing. Time to start living like I had nothing left to prove and no one left to impress. And ironically, that meant keeping the ticket exactly where it was, because if I ever did hit the jackpot, the last people who'd know about it would be them. Months passed, and I settled into my 2-job grind. Mornings at the marketing firm, drafting ads for law offices and denture clinics. Nights at the diner, serving milkshakes and meatloaf to hormonal teenagers and overworked truckers. I lived on caffeine, sarcasm, and the occasional cookie from the sweet old lady across the hall. My apartment smelled permanently like burned toast and fried onions, but it was mine. No handouts, no pity, no Jason-shaped shadow looming over me. Then came the photo. Jason's fiancée, Amanda, flashing a rock on her finger that could blind satellites. Caption, "She said yes, so proud of our boy." Of course, I found out through the family group chat. Not a call, not even a text, just another headline in the Jason Tribune. And that feeling I'd buried, the quiet ache of never being enough, dug its claws back into my chest. I didn't want a spotlight, I just wanted not to be ignored. Or worse, used as a background prop in my own family. 2 weeks later, my mom invited me to dinner. "It's been too long," she said. "The last time we saw each other was Jason's housewarming party, where I'd been mistaken for a waiter by one of Amanda's cousins. I showed up at 6 sharp with a bottle of wine I couldn't afford, and Mom greeted me like I'd just returned from war. "Mikey," she squealed, using the nickname I thought we'd all agreed to bury in the 3rd grade. The evening went as expected. Mom fawning over Jason's latest renovation. We helped him pick the tile. Dad talking up Jason's career prospects, and Jason himself pretending wedding planning was some kind of trauma. I sat quietly, cutting through dry chicken while waiting for the ambush. It came right after dessert. "We have exciting news," Mom said, practically vibrating. "Jason and Amanda set the date, and we're helping with everything. Venue, catering, dress, even their honeymoon in Hawaii." She beamed, like she'd just cured world hunger. "We just want to give them the day they deserve." I stared at her like she'd spoken in tongues. "And me?" I asked, barely able to hide the sting. "Did you ever plan to help me with anything?" The silence was immediate and cavernous. Jason shifted uncomfortably. Dad coughed into his napkin. Mom's smile wavered. "Well, no one's stopping you from working harder," she said. That sentence, it hit like a freight train made of childhood trauma. I let out a dry laugh, sharp and hollow. "Right," I said, "because 2 jobs aren't enough. I'll be sure to squeeze in a 3rd between sleep and self-respect." I didn't wait for the follow-up. I dropped my napkin, stood up, and left. The door clicked behind me like punctuation. Outside, I took deep breaths, each one laced with a cocktail of rage and liberation. My phone buzzed, family chat lighting up like I'd just set off fireworks. I didn't read a single message. I just blocked the group, shoved my phone in my pocket, and walked away, with one thought pounding in my head. They weren't my family anymore. They were just people I happened to be related to by bad luck and DNA. Then there it was, the lottery ticket, wedged between a dead remote, tangled charger cords, and a half-melted birthday candle. I held it like it was radioactive, the same $2 joke my parents had gifted me while Jason got a down payment wrapped in a bow. I almost tossed it onto the pile of expired coupons and unmatched socks, but something about it, maybe spite, maybe curiosity. I grabbed my phone, opened the state lottery site, and typed in the numbers printed in faded ink. August 15th, 27, 34, 42, 56. I didn't expect anything, just validation that I'd always be the cosmic punchline. But then the screen blinked. "Congratulations, jackpot winner." I blinked, hit refresh, same result. Checked the numbers again, still a match. $134 million, 0 cents. The page didn't change. Reality did. I stood there in my kitchen, surrounded by takeout boxes and the hum of a fridge that wheezed like a dying donkey, and realized I was now, apparently, rich. Not just no more ramen rich. Life-changing, tax bracket melting, disappear off the map rich. My first instinct wasn't joy. It was panic. I placed the ticket gently on the counter like it might detonate. My hands trembled and my breath came in shallow gasps. This had to be a mistake, a glitch, a cruel simulation test run by the universe. But the numbers were real. The ticket was real, and unless I was hallucinating from too many double shifts, so was the jackpot. I paced the apartment like a man possessed. Googled, ungoogled, Googled again, what to do after winning the lottery. The advice was all caps lock hysteria, hire a lawyer, trust no one, don't tell family. My heart thudded so loud I thought the neighbors might call the cops. I wanted to scream, to laugh, to cry, to eat something that wasn't leftover diner fries. Instead, I sat down on my ratty couch and stared at the ticket. What now? Who do you even call when your life shifts from dollar mill to multimillionaire overnight? And worse, what happens if your family finds out? I didn't have answers, but I knew one thing for certain. Jason was never going to see this ticket. Ever. The guy still owed me for a pizza from 2008. I shoved the ticket back into the drawer, this time burying it under years of discarded paper like a crime scene. I spent the night pacing like a cat on meth, imagining every possible scenario. Mom sending heart emojis, followed by a Venmo request. Jason making up some story about Amanda's medical bills. Dad cornering me with a napkin budget for a boat he didn't deserve. The thought of them finding out made my stomach churn harder than the leftover chili I probably shouldn't have eaten. I needed help. Real help, not family help. So I did what any overwhelmed, paranoid millennial would do. I Googled lottery attorneys and financial advisors, filtered out anyone with stock photos or Comic Sans fonts, and found one with stellar reviews and a face that didn't scream con artist. Her name was Carol, and by morning I was sitting in her high-rise office, holding my future in a Ziploc bag. Carol's office smelled like leather-bound contracts and generational wealth. Everything gleamed. Her desk, her glasses, her damn stapler. I sat there in my thrift store jacket, clutching a plastic bag like I was carrying a kidney. "So," she said, smiling like someone who didn't flinch at 8-figure conversations. "Tell me everything." And I did. The scratch-off, the match, the panic, the absolute terror of being related to financial parasites with guilt-tripping PhDs. She listened, didn't judge, just nodded and took notes. "First rule," she said, "you tell no one. Not friends, not coworkers, definitely not your family." She said it so casually, it felt like she'd already met mine. "Money does weird things to people. You need to disappear financially. Create buffers. LLCs, a trust if possible." The next hour was a crash course in not screwing up your golden ticket. She talked taxes, lawyers, bank shielding, and disaster plans like she was planning a hostage rescue. By the time I left, I had a checklist longer than a CVS receipt, and an escape route from the mess I didn't ask for, but damn well intended to survive. Over the next few weeks, Carol turned me from accidental millionaire into financial Batman. She helped me form a holding company to anonymously claim the prize, walked me through 5 different bank setups, prepped me for IRS scrutiny, and taught me how to speak rich without sounding like a jerk. The check arrived at the lottery office with a smile and a security escort. After taxes, it came out to about $85 million, 0 cents, which, let's be honest, was still enough to make Scrooge McDuck weep. I walked out holding it like it might disintegrate, then drove straight home, locked the door, and laid the check on my kitchen table like an offering to the gods of vindication. For 10 straight minutes, I just stared at it. No soundtrack, no dramatic music, just the low hum of my fridge and the bubbling stew of disbelief in my chest. And then I laughed. Hard. The kind of laugh that comes from years of being forgotten, overlooked, undervalued. Now I had the money and the silence to build a life that didn't revolve around Jason's shadow. I started small. I paid off every student loan that had ever haunted my credit report like a financial poltergeist. Then I drove to the diner, smiled at my boss Linda, handed her a sealed envelope, and told her I wouldn't be coming in anymore. "Is this your 2 weeks?" she asked, raising an eyebrow. "It's $5,000, I said. "For your patience and the freezer you let me cry in." She looked like she wanted to hug me and slap me at the same time. "Don't be a stranger, kid." I promised I wouldn't, but I lied. That life was over. Next came the car. Not some neon midlife crisis mobile, just a clean black Tesla, sleek, silent, sharp. It drove like a whisper and felt like a secret. I didn't post a photo, didn't show it to anyone. Just parked it in the underground garage of my next stop, a real estate office that didn't even have prices listed on their windows. Because when a home is truly out of reach, they don't bother tagging it like clearance meat. I wanted something bigger than Jason's, not because I needed the space, because I deserved the satisfaction. I found it by accident, a sprawling, sun-drenched modern home just a few blocks from Jason's, double the size, triple the privacy, floor-to-ceiling windows, a gourmet kitchen, a master bathroom with a tub large enough to fake a drowning in. It wasn't just a house, it was psychological warfare with granite countertops. I bought it on the spot, all cash. No bidding war, no loan officer giving me side-eye, just a wire transfer and a wicked little grin on my face. No one knew, not Jason, not Mom, not even the neighbors. I moved in under the radar. No housewarming, no photos, no social media breadcrumbs. I didn't even forward my mail. Most nights, I sat on the patio with a craft beer, watching the sunset and listening to nothing but peace. Jason was only blocks away, probably yelling at Amanda about Pinterest colors, and me. I was anonymous, rich, and finally untouchable for a while. Then came the cracks. It started harmlessly. An old friend texted, "Dude, saw someone who looked like you driving a black Tesla in Oakwood. New job?" I played it off. Nah, must have been my evil twin. But then Dan, my old neighbor from the apartment, spotted me at a gas station. "Whoa, man, didn't know you moved to the burbs. That ride's sick. Win the jackpot or something?" He was joking. I laughed it off. But the anxiety started bubbling. The internet says money changes people. What it really changes is how visible you become. I stayed home more, started entering through the garage. But word spreads, especially when your car gleams like a Bond villain accessory. And then came the call. Mom. She sounded like sunshine and strategy. "Sweetheart, we heard you're doing so well. We're so proud of you." Proud? That was rich. She'd been proud of Jason for breathing in rhythm. Now suddenly I mattered? "How did you find out where I live?" I asked. She giggled. "Oh, Jason said one of his friends saw you near Oakwood. Small world." "Sure. Or just a small social circle full of snitches." The next call came that evening. "Jason." "Bro!" he said like we were beer buddies. "Heard you're in the neighborhood. We gotta catch up. Grab a drink or something." Jason doesn't drink beer. Jason drinks cucumber gin fusions with lavender foam and complains about the garnish. "Busy lately?" I said flatly. "Ah, come on, man. Heard your new place is sick. We'll swing by sometime." I stared at the phone like it had insulted me personally. Somewhere between the black Tesla and the landscaping, the veil had slipped. They knew. They didn't know how much, but they knew enough. And now the same people who gave me a lottery ticket as a graduation present were planning a friendly little siege. The next week was a blur of fake affection. Amanda sent me a selfie with the caption, "Miss you," as if we'd ever had a single meaningful exchange. Dad texted me about some killer grill deal at Lowe's like I was suddenly his backyard protege. And then came the cherry on top. A message in the family group chat. Yes, the same one I had muted months ago. Jason standing under a massive oak tree, captioned, "Mike's new neighborhood is so nice. Thinking of moving here too." I nearly dropped my phone. They weren't just curious anymore. They were plotting proximity. I stared at the message like it was a threat wrapped in passive aggression. They were circling, like vultures in matching polos. I called Carol. "They know," I said. Her voice didn't waver. "This happens. They smell money. Don't let guilt open the door you've finally closed." I wanted to believe I was immune, but when Mom texted Sunday dinner at Jason's, "Just the family, please come," my curiosity cracked the armor. I told myself I needed closure. What I really wanted was proof they were exactly who I'd always suspected. I pulled into Jason's driveway that Sunday just before sunset. His house looked the same, oversized, overdecorated, and under-earned. My Tesla hummed to a stop beside his SUV. I stepped out holding a mid-price bottle of wine, my armor for whatever emotional ambush awaited. "Mikey!" Mom squealed as she opened the door, like I was a long-lost son returned from war, not someone she'd forgotten until he got a nicer kitchen. She hugged me with all the sincerity of a politician on camera. Jason greeted me like we'd been trading jokes weekly. "Bro, look at you," he said, eyes scanning my shoes, my watch, my everything. The living room smelled like citrus cleaner and ulterior motives. Family photos of Jason lined the walls like a shrine to mediocrity. Dad gave me a stiff nod. "Glad you could make it." The table was set with Mom's best china. Jason sat at the head, grinning like he was hosting a board meeting, and me, I took my seat across from him, every sense bracing for impact. Dinner was a game of conversational dodgeball. Jason talked about his golf swing, Amanda's wedding colors. Mom raved about her new air fryer. I nodded, smiled, chewed through overcooked steak, and waited for the shoe to drop. It didn't take long. As dessert hit the table, a store-bought cheesecake slathered in canned cherry topping. Mom clinked her glass like she was giving a toast. "So," she said, beaming like she just solved world peace, "we wanted to share something exciting." Jason reached under the table and slid a folder toward me. I opened it slowly. Inside, an itemized estimate for $100,000, 0 cents, from Oakwood Construction. Sunroom, expanded garage, fancy lighting. Mom clasped her hands like a woman pitching salvation. "We thought now that you've done so well with your investments, maybe you'd like to help your brother." Jason nodded. "It's a solid investment. Adds property value, plus we could host more family events." I stared at the paper, then back at their eager faces. So this was it. Their master plan. Guilt-funded renovations and a shiny new garage. All wrapped in a casserole of "we miss you." I closed the folder slowly, like it was radioactive. "That's a lot of money," I said, not blinking. "Well," Mom chirped, "it's not just the house. We were also thinking of upgrading Jason and Amanda's wedding. She really wants a destination one now, something elegant." Dad cleared his throat like he was about to deliver a business pitch. "We figured $100,000, 0 cents, would cover both." I stared at them. "You figured?" Mom's smile tightened. "We've always helped each other when we could, and now that you're doing well, we just thought it was your chance to give back. As a family." The words "give back" hit me like a slap wrapped in a Hallmark card. Give back? I spent my childhood getting whatever was on clearance while Jason raked in new cars, tuition, and entire homes. Now that I had something of my own, they wanted me to redistribute it like I'd won a socialist sweepstakes. The cheesecake on my plate curdled in my mouth. I looked around the table and realized this wasn't dinner. It was a heist. I set the folder on the table and took a long, slow breath. "You mean like when Jason got a brand new car and I got a used bike with a flat tire? Or when he got a house and I got a scratch-off ticket?" Mom's smile faltered. "That was different." "Was it?" I asked, "because it sounds exactly the same. You didn't help me when I needed it, not once. I was the afterthought, the backup plan, the one who worked 2 jobs while Jason explored his options. And now that I've built something for myself without a dime from any of you, now you want a piece?" Jason raised his hands, trying to look innocent. "Come on, man, we're just asking for a little help." $100,000 isn't a little." I stood up. "But you know what? You're right, I am doing well. Because I stopped depending on people who only show up when they smell a payday." Mom's eyes welled up instantly. "We just thought you'd want to share your blessings." I smiled. "Calm? Cold? Well, no one's stopping you from working harder." Jason's jaw clenched. "Jerk." I turned to the door and paused, hand on the handle. "You know what the real lottery win was?" I said without turning around. "Finally realizing I don't owe you anything." I walked out without another word. The door clicked shut behind me like a final nail in the coffin of my people-pleasing phase. Outside, the air was sharp and cleansing. I stood by my car, breathing it in like I was reclaiming oxygen after years in a smoke-filled room. My phone buzzed. Mom, of course. I didn't read the text. I didn't have to. I blocked her number, then Dad's, then Jason's, then Amanda's, then that godforsaken group chat. I drove home in silence, no music, no thoughts. Just peace. When I pulled into my driveway, I sat there for a moment, fingers curled around the wheel, and smiled. That was it. The final straw. The last ask. The last guilt trip. The last time I would be anyone's financial fallback plan. My peace was bought, built, and barricaded. And this time, I wasn't letting anyone in. Life after the final fallout was quieter than I expected, and louder in the ways that mattered. No more group texts filled with Jason selfies or Dad's passive-aggressive grill pics. No more emotional landmines disguised as family dinners. My days belonged to me now. I woke when I wanted, took on projects that fulfilled me, and traveled because I could. I invested in companies I believed in, not pity parties. I bought a cabin in Oregon for the fall and a condo in New York for the spring, and for the first time in my life, I didn't have to explain myself to anyone. My home, my real home, became something sacred. I added a library, then a studio, then a ridiculous espresso machine I didn't know how to use but loved staring at. I filled the space with music and silence and self-respect, and I never heard another word from Jason, Mom, or Dad. Whether that was pride, shame, or denial, I didn't care. I didn't need their explanations. I had given myself closure, and that was enough. Still, the universe has a twisted sense of humor. I was grabbing coffee downtown one afternoon when I spotted Jason across the street, standing outside some artisanal burger place, still dressed like a guy who peaked at a college graduation party. He saw me, too. "Mike," he called, like we were about to hug it out. "Man, look at you. Fancy now, huh?" I smiled politely, said, "Been busy," and started walking away. But he followed. "You know," he said, hands in pockets, tone shifting, "I still think it's kinda unfair." I stopped. "What is?" "That you got lucky," he muttered, nodding at my parked SUV. "You scratched a ticket, that's all." I tilted my head, let the silence stew, then said, "Yeah, maybe I got lucky scratching the ticket, but everything after that, I built. You got a house and a car handed to you and still ended up broke and bitter. I got ignored and still came out ahead." He stared at me like he was trying to do math with no calculator. "Life's unfair," he finally said. "Yeah," I replied, walking away. "It is, especially to people who think they're entitled to someone else's win." That night, I sat on my back patio, wrapped in a blanket of quiet that money can't buy but escaping your family can. The sky was painted in melting oranges and soft blues. My coffee steamed in the cool evening air. Across the neighborhood, Jason's house still stood, smaller, dimmer, louder. I hadn't heard from him since our awkward run-in, and I hoped I never would again. Let him throw his tantrums. Let Amanda demand her sunroom. Let Mom post her passive-aggressive casserole pictures. None of it mattered anymore. Because I wasn't chasing their approval. I wasn't even in their race. I had won the jackpot, sure. But it wasn't the money that changed my life. It was the realization that I didn't need them to feel whole. The real prize was freedom. Freedom from being the backup plan. Freedom from scraping for their attention. Freedom from a family that only saw me when they wanted something. Somewhere across town, Jason was probably sulking to Mom about how unfair life was. Me? I smiled, took a sip, and watched the sun set on everything I used to want. In the end, he didn't need their praise. He outgrew their permission. While his parents bragged about Jason's backsplash and sunroom, he built a life they'll only see through whispers and second-hand sightings. No more hand-me-downs, no more guilt trips, just silence, wealth, and the kind of peace that money can't buy but boundaries absolutely can. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and stick around, because on Drama with Ted and Tina, family feuds don't end with forgiveness, they end with receipts.